surprised you married me. I would have been like, we need to pause on this real quick because I wasn't necessarily a bridezilla, but I just knew what I wanted. And I'm like, oh, thank you for your suggestions, but I don't care. Hey guys, welcome back to Between the Walls. We are your hosts. My name is Jess.
And I'm Jonathan, and we are the Wallaces.
Yeah, so I feel like last podcast, I was so nervous and I was really nervous. I feel like we didn't even really get to introduce ourselves or say where we've been or anything like that. We kind of just jumped right in. So, like my husband said, we're the Wallaces. This is not our first rodeo. We were kind of doing a pilot season on my other channel. So, if you want to check out all the things we've spoken about before, you can check out my other channel. I'll leave the link in the description box. But yeah, we've been married for almost 2 years.
Almost 2.
I'm 32 and my husband's 26. He'll be 27 next month. We've known each other for a long time and now we're just on this ride. We are Christians. What else? That's pretty much it.
We like Jesus. I don't know. Yeah. Everything else I'm going to say is going to be super generic.
Okay.
So I love my friends. I love my family.
Yeah, no, that's dead. And yeah, we're just here for the ride and we're just going to talk about things that we would normally talk about. That's why it's called Between the Walls, but it's also, we're just inviting you guys into our conversations. So what are we talking about today, babe? I took it last time. I did a lot of talking on the last episode, so this one's all you. All right, what are we talking about?
We just wanted to talk about some things that we would like you to know that we wish we knew before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said that really weirdly.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to give you some tips if you're thinking about marriage or if you're single and you're thinking about a partner, whatever stage you are, tips that we've learned over our first 2 years of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we think would be really important for you to know. And yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you, actually. Before you decided to propose to me, what did you know about marriage? What did you think marriage was or what it was going to be like? Is it what you thought it was going to be?
I think it is what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that. I had a really healthy view of marriage growing up. My parents have been married for 32 years. Yeah, 32 years. They have a great marriage. They do relationship counseling, so there's that side of it too. So I got to see a lot of healthy habits modeled. And just up until the time before we were getting engaged, I'd been reading books about marriage and really getting some research in.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously experience is different than whatever you read or whatever you look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's been close to what I expected. I mean, I get told what to do more than I thought I would.
I didn't say what to do when we were dating.
No, you let me do whatever I wanted, and then we got married, and that part switched.
Yeah, sorry.
But
surprise.
It is what it is. But everything's been great so far. How about you?
Is marriage what I thought it was going to be? Yeah, I'd say so. My parents are still married as well, but we experienced 2 different types of marriages growing up. My parents' marriage is very different from his parents' marriage, and I think we both bring in a little bit of both of our parents' marriages, which, is not a good or bad. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but I think mine comes with a little more. It's just a little different.
A little more spice.
Yeah, it's so funny when me and Jonathan got married, and my family is a lot. They're a lot, but also it just works. But every time something would happen, I'm like, oh my gosh, my husband hates me. I'm like, because we're just so much more of a sitcom and a drama show than yours. Yeah, I guess we can talk about.
Yeah, family definitely comes up in this conversation.
Maybe we should just start with that one then.
All right, sure.
Yes, family, your spouse's, your partner's family is very important. How are you with your in-laws? Do they gel well with your family as well? Because now that you're into this family, they're your family as well. And when it comes down to holidays and birthdays and when your kids are having things, both families are going to be there. And yeah, it can work if your families don't like each other or if you don't like your mother-in-law, but it's just going to make life so much more complicated. So I feel like that's not the biggest thing. Obviously, we said it wasn't number 1, but since we were already talking about it, just throw that in there. But it's not a huge thing, but I am so grateful that both of our families get along so well. It also helps that our families knew each other before we were even born. So
yeah,
that works out very well. My parents knew my husband way, way before we even started dating. And his parents knew me when I was born and before I even knew who Jonathan was. Well, you weren't alive yet, but still, all that stuff. So that helped a lot.
Yeah, I think family in general, when people are like, oh yeah, I don't really like their family dynamic, but that doesn't really mean anything to me because I really like them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you can really like somebody, you can really love somebody, but when you marry them, you're marrying their family as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if they have close family ties, you know, and you definitely want to make sure that they have healthy relationships with their family, that the relationships how they relate with one another because whatever that was before, you know, you get married, it's going to spill in after marriage as well. So
Mm-hmm.
even when you like think about how people's parents argued,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that plays a factor in how your future spouse might argue as
Yeah.
well, or the things that they've seen play a factor. So you definitely want to make sure that you guys have examined your families of origin and how they play impacts on you. And even thinking about, I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry. Even
It's a podcast, babe. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you're right. Even thinking about traditions, like whose house are you going to for
Mm-hmm.
Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna do for Thanksgiving? And you know, we had our own version of this the first year before we were married.
Oh, it's horrible.
We tried to do Thanksgiving at my grandma's house, who's like an hour and a half away, and then drive another hour and a half to her family's
Zero
Thanksgiving, which is
stars.
like another hour and a half away. And we ended up just missing the best parts of both
Yeah.
and feeling like, you know, like that was silly.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to make sure you got to make sure, you know, like you talk about certain things like that before
Yeah.
you walk into marriage.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to family, with like the mother-in-law or father-in-law dynamic, it may seem like, oh, I don't really care if my mother-in-law doesn't like me, or I don't care if my father-in-law doesn't like me. But you have to think about the future. Like when you have kids, those are going to be the people who are babysitting your children. And you don't want to have that toxic relationship in front of your children. And also, it was important to me that my parents loved and respected my husband. And it comes into benefit a lot because sometimes when things are going a little awry, I will call my mom. But because she loves Jonathan, she gives him the benefit of the doubt. She stands like in the gap since he's not there to defend himself. And she'll be like, oh, well, have you thought about maybe this? Or maybe you need to do this? Or make sure you never say that to your husband and things like that. But if my mom hated Jonathan, she'd be like, girl, yeah, he's trash. You got to get out of that. Like, and like would feed me the things that I don't need. So I think family is very important. It's just very important.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm lucky that my mother-in-law does love me so much. That's why we can kind of get away with a little bit of and my mom loves Jess too. We can kind of get away a little bit with talking to our parents about our spouses.
Yeah.
But one thing that
Not too much.
yeah,
Though.
one thing to be
There are boundaries.
careful with is talking about the boundaries
Mm-hmm.
in that you are gonna forgive your spouse for
Mm-hmm.
something they did way quicker
Than your mama.
than your mom or dad will.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful with what you are saying to them
Yeah.
because you can forgive them and then your family's holding a grudge
Yeah.
forever, and then that's the, you know,
Yeah.
you run into problems there.
Yeah.
But you know, we both got lucky for the fact that I mean, none of us did anything really crazy, but our
Mhm.
parents really love our significant others, and
Yeah.
that is a big aid to our marriage rather than being a detriment. So
Yeah.
examining family traditions, family, you know, history,
Mm-hmm.
generational trauma,
Yeah.
generational
Work that out before you
curses,
get
all that good
married.
stuff. Yeah, work it all out, think about it, because that's a huge, huge, huge factor going into marriage.
I'm gonna just say two things. One thing I'll say, we can wrap up the parent thing, but my daddy is 100% Team Jonathan. Like even if I call my dad at like 8:30 p.m., he'll be like, "Why are you calling me? You're supposed to be spending time with your husband." I'm like, "Dad, can I talk to you?" He's like, "Go talk to your husband." Like he is just so Team Jonathan. Make sure you're keeping your husband happy. Of course, I mean, if we're being real, obviously he's always gonna be Team me, but like he knows I'm fine, so he's always just like, what'd you make your husband for dinner tonight and blah blah blah. And it's not that he's like super old fashioned thinking like your place is in the kitchen and whatever, but like he is just like cherish and protect and love your husband, and he always wants to make sure that I'm on that. But the other thing I wanted to say is this is going to go along with everything we say today. A lot of things before you get married are going to seem like, oh, that's something I can deal with, it's not a big deal. But once you get married and you're living with someone and you have to deal with someone's family forever, you're going to be like, I wish I paid more attention to all these little things that we're going to bring up now. So we
Ye-
can move on. Or
Yeah,
you can talk
I
about
think. Well, no, thank you.
it.
But
Either one.
the first thing that we originally planned to go over before we got into the parent thing and I think is the most important thing is making sure your core beliefs are aligned.
Yes, core beliefs are number one for us. I think as a Christian, and honestly, I think maybe I can't speak for other religions, but I'll just speak for myself as a Christian. Marriage is hard enough. I could not imagine being married to someone who did not have the same beliefs as I did. I just like, because I know some people are like, oh, yeah, so and so, my man or my girl doesn't want to go to church, but like, I don't really care as long as I'm going to church. And like, oh, they said they'll come with me every now and then. Again, that goes back to what I said. It seems like it's okay now, but when you get married, it's horrible, like doing that back and forth. And I always just think like it's okay with you, but always think about your children. If you guys are people who plan on having a family, the more things that you guys don't agree on now and you think like, oh, this is fine, I don't really care. Yeah, you might not care, but it's going to affect your kids when you have to split up on Sundays or you have to split up during Christmas because your wife doesn't want to celebrate Christmas and like, okay, I'll take the kid or whatever it is. It's always going to come down to affecting your children, and then it's going to go back and affect you, and it's going to affect your marriage. But you can get on that.
No, 100%. I think more so than just being a Christian versus not being a Christian, loving Jesus versus not loving Jesus. I think it's just so important for anything that you're super passionate about,
Mhm.
anything that is core to who you are. If your person or the person that you're thinking about being with doesn't agree with those things or has a separate thing apart from that, it's just gonna cause a point of strife, a point of
Mhm.
butting heads down the future. And the one we go to is faith in God, our belief in Jesus, because that's one of the most essential, that is the most essential thing to me as a
Mhm.
person. So if everything that I live my life towards, like my life's purpose, I believe is like to love God and love people well.
Mhm.
If my person who I'm deciding to care, like join partners with and do this life together
Yeah.
has a different mission in life, we're not going to be able to do life together well.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like, how can two walk together unless they're aligned?
Mhm.
Like we're going to be walking in different directions, and you want the person that you're going to be with walking in the same direction as you. And I
Yeah.
think it's just that simple. And for anybody that's thinking about getting into a relationship or you just started a relationship and the person that you're want to walk forward with has different beliefs or different wants or different desires than you, like core desires,
Mhm.
then that's just a prime key moment to walk away.
Mhm.
A very good example of this is when you want kids
I
and
was just thinking about
the
that.
person that you want to be with absolutely does not want kids.
Mhm.
It is the silliest thing to me to stay in a relationship. Like a relationship, like you're really like building feelings, building layers of emotional connection.
Yep.
When someone fundamentally wants different things out of life than you,
Mhm.
because it's just going to cause more pain later. And
Yeah.
we'd always think, oh, I can get
Change
through
their
that. I can change their
minds.
mind. I can.
Mhm. Mhm. What was it? Don't get married based off potential. Is it
Yeah,
potential?
yeah. Don't get married based off
Yeah,
potential.
marry that person for what they are now, assuming like if they never change, if their ideas, thoughts, beliefs, whatever never changes, I can deal with this for the rest of my life. Not thinking like, okay, this is how they are now, but if I can just after we get married, I can definitely change their mind into blah blah blah. Don't do that. Do not do that. I thought I could change Jonathan's mind to move to Atlanta after we got married, and I was wrong.
She didn't really think that.
I was wrong.
She did
We're
not think that.
staying in Florida. We're not moving. It's a tiny hope of mine. But anyways, yeah, marry them for what they are in your face right then and there. Because if they never change and you're like, oh dang, it didn't work, that is your husband or that is your wife, and you made a vow through better or worse, through thick and thin. You got to stay. So make sure you can write it down on paper. And you're like, everything on here, I can deal with this. I can deal with. Does that sound kind of negative? Like, oh, I can deal with that.
No, like anything that
This
is
is fine with
negative.
me. This is
You
good
know what I'm
with me.
saying? Like I'm okay with this as it is.
Mhm.
This kind of extends past the core beliefs part, but any even annoying habit that you're like, if this didn't change, it would drive me crazy.
Mhm.
If you can't get past that thing, it's like, oh, but they're gonna change. If whatever that habit is, multiply it times 10.
Yeah.
Because when you're dating, that voice
I
crack.
did.
When you're dating,
And you're promoted.
yeah,
Sorry.
when you're dating someone, you're putting on your best self
Mhm.
because you want them to pick you and you want them to continue to pick you,
Right.
right? But when you're married a little bit, you kind of
You loosen the reins a lot.
you loosen up a little bit because it's like you can't pretend all the time. But when you're
Mm-hmm.
dating, you can pretend for some of that time.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, don't go through with it just because like I'll probably get better. It'll be all
Yeah.
right.
No.
You're just gonna be in for a harder marriage, and that's not to say that you couldn't get through it, or
Right.
it would just be a lot harder. You just want to make sure that you're walking in the same direction
Mm-hmm.
before you decide to get married.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're gonna talk about is community.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea around this one is that you want to make sure that your community around your partner, or that they have around themselves, they're surrounded by positive role models. Role models might even be the wrong word, but that their peers are along the same direction that they're trying to go in life, if that makes sense. So it's like if they're the best one out of their friend group, that everyone else in their friend group, you know, is awful, bringing them down, giving them poor advice, then that's one of those red flags, because you're the sum total of all the people that you spend time with.
Yeah.
All the inputs that you have. So if someone like their circle isn't great, that's just one thing that I think is super important. I know this is the one that you wrote down originally.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I'm not saying at all that, like, whoever you get married to, like, to make sure they don't have a bunch of single friends and, like, all their friends are married. Because, I mean, you were one of the first people in, like, your circle of friends to get married. Not the first, but one of the first. And then the rest of the guys were single. But they were quality men. So I had no doubt thinking they were going to be like, hey, let's go to the strip club, like, blah, blah. Like none of that was a thought in my head. I was listening to this podcast a little while back, and the girl was writing in a question saying, my husband's coworkers, who are pretty much his only friends, because he doesn't go to church, all he does is go to work, so those are his friends. She's pregnant, and all his coworkers are telling him, like, bro, your life's over. How are you gonna, like, still go out with a baby? And that it's making him so unexcited. Is that a word? Unexcited? Whatever.
That works.
It's making him very much not excited to have this baby because he has no positive voices in his head. It's all negative. Like, dang, you having a jit. Like, oh, blah, blah. Like, your life's over. He has no positive affirmations from anyone in his community telling him good things. So I think it's so important. Like, he even said, like, oh, if your wife or husband is the best one in the group, it's not a good sign. I mean, I think you should always have someone who you can look up to, someone who's mentoring you. But I mean, you could be the best out of like the other great men. So, you know, like, it's not a huge red flag if he's the best one. Like, good for you, you got the best one, or good for you, you got the best girl. But the people that your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, those are their circle is the people that they're talking to when things go wrong in your relationship, as of right now, anyways. Like, I have a couple of my girlfriends, like, every now and then when I feel like something's off, or like I want to bring up something to Jonathan, I don't know how, I'll like hit them up. Like, I have different friends for different like pieces of advice. And thankfully, all of my friends are Christians, and they all have level heads, so they tell me good things and positive things. It's never like, man, F this. They're like, girl, let's go to the club, or like, whatever. It's never anything negative. You know, the worst thing would be like, let's talk about this over a drink or something. And that's not even that, like, that's not a bad thing. The people who your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, has around them, those are going to be your kids' titis and uncles or whatever, you know, like, your kids are going to be hanging out around them too. And I know I constantly bring up the kids, but this is the future, because right now it's so easy to think about, oh, well, it's just me and him. It's not a big deal if my boyfriend hangs out with a bunch of people who smoke. Like, your kids are eventually going to be hanging out with them sooner than later, because unless you don't want kids, you got maybe 2 to 3 years before everything is about the kids.
Yeah, I think it's all right for people to have friends that, you know, maybe aren't the best, you know, in general.
They
Like,
need you.
Yeah, they need you. You know, they need you, and that people that you're pouring into their life. It's a good thing, I would say, to be pouring into certain people's lives. But if you're only pouring into others' lives, but you have no one around you in your community that's pouring into you, then eventually you'll be pulled down to the level of the people that you're pouring into.
You'll be running dry. You'll have nothing left to give.
Yeah, you'll be pulled down to the level of the people you're pouring into.
Yeah.
So as long as, you know, when I say community, I don't just mean friends. I mean, you know, people like mentors, people around that are going to speak positive and speak life into the person that you're looking to marry.
Yeah.
You know, you want them to have good influences as well as people that they're working on. Well, working on sounds bad. People that they're pouring into.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about your group of friends. Am I super excited about all of them? No, but they're good guys. You have some good friends around. Some of them, I be looking at them with a little side eye. I'm like, I don't get it, but go off, babe. But they're good. They're good guys.
They're gonna watch this. They're gonna be wondering if they're the
which
ones.
one is it? Is it me? Yes. If you think it's you, it's you.
Dang, they're gonna be worried. That's crazy.
Do better than. I'm just kidding. I love all your friends. But some of them I do got to give a side eye. I'm like, I don't know about that one, babe. I ain't gonna lie.
I love all of Jess's friends. They're all great.
It's true.
She has the best friends.
Even so and so and so and so, who lives so and so. You know what I'm talking about?
Jess got the best friends.
I do. If you could pick one of your friends right now to marry our future child, like our daughter was their age, which one would it be?
Are they single?
Yes. Pretend all your friends are single. Wait, who do I think you're gonna pick? And we can say it on 3. Oh, I know.
They're all single.
Yes. Pretend they're all single.
Even the married ones.
Yes. Pretend they're all single, and like they were 16 when our daughter was 16. Who would you choose? But they are the way they are right now.
Are we saying the name on 3?
Yes. First and last name.
Well, then you gave it away. What you thinking?
Dang it! I am.
Yeah. I'm between two.
And.
Well, he was a fantastic man. But I was between and I love all my friends, man.
Yeah, that's good. What about my friends? If we had a son. Oh, I already know.
Too easy.
1, 2, 3. That's so funny.
Of course.
All right, that's funny. Oh man, this is a good one because this is the one that I don't want to say I struggle with, but this is the one that I feel like we bump heads with the most. We don't argue very often, but when we do have a little bit of a tense moment, this is usually what it's about, and it's money management.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is usually, I feel like with these conversations, I can like tell like, oh, that's the guy's problem or that's the girl's problem, but this can go both ways.
100%.
Like, it's a tough one.
I mean, I feel like even though I want to save more than I want to spend, I can still get into like kind of like streaks where I'm like spending more than I'm saving. So I feel like the balancing act of it is very important.
Yeah.
And like same thing with like two people walking in the same line, because if you guys are not aligned on that, then
I don't want you to think that like, dang, my boyfriend or girlfriend is really, really bad with saving. I'm going to have to be the one to like put my foot down when we get married. No. You figure it out before, because after you get married is not the time to fix anything. It's like not the time to address things after you get married. Like if you see like, geez, all he does is spend money on shoes, or all she does is spend money at Sephora, and they have no savings, you think you're going to get married with no savings? I'm sorry. What are you doing? Like, do they know how to invest? Can they save? Do they know anything about money management? Do they tithe? Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we really doing here? You know what I'm saying? Like, that is just so important. And I know that I think Jonathan was clenching his, like, butt cheeks when we were planning our wedding, because I was spending a lot. And
bro,
spending a lot of money on our wedding.
And she would hide how much she was spending.
Because we weren't married yet. I'm like, you can't tell me what to do. Yeah, there's a little ring on my finger, but there's not 2 rings. There's only 1. That means you're not my husband yet. That was what I was trying to use as an escape. I'm like, he's not my husband. He can't tell me what to do yet.
I was in grad school, so I wasn't making any money. So Jess and her dad were paying for most everything. Mm-hmm. And as we would have like meetings to talk about the wedding budget or lack thereof, it's just like, I'm like, I don't know if we should spend this much money on that. And she would just give me a look and kind of not say that I'm going to do what I want, but like essentially be saying I'm gonna do what I want, and then like get mad at me for suggesting that we do less, and
I'm trying to scale back. I'm like, come on now,
that was a period of time where
what are we doing? You're a little nervous.
I was a little nervous, you know. I'm like, dang, if this is what it's like now, how is it gonna be when we get married? But it ended up being fine.
But so what was it that like you got nervous for a little bit? What made you think like, oh, it'll be fine, or like, did you think, oh, we can figure this out later? Like, what made you still want to go through it and not bring it up? Like,
I think what was helpful was that I didn't see any other sign throughout our process of dating that you were irresponsible. Mm-hmm. There were times where, like, you didn't know about things, you know, but you were...
What do you know about?
You know, like, know about, like, the intricacies of, like, stocks and, trading and... having like a high yield savings account, stuff like that. But it wasn't that you were irresponsible with your money. Like you always had savings. We were able to buy a house largely because Jess had really good savings.
Yeah.
We were able to buy a house. We were able to pay for a wedding. All because Jess saved really well. So she had good money habits. There was just a moment where I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I don't. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think where I went wrong in that, like, yeah, I was spending a lot, and I felt comfortable doing that because I knew I had the savings of like, we have the money to buy the house, we have the money for the wedding. But I think where I went wrong was he was voicing his concerns and like saying like, I think we should probably scale back on like, say it was the flowers, and I just wasn't listening. I'm like, this. I kind of felt this is how I felt, and this is not really the topic, but how I felt was this is my wedding. I'm gonna do it this way. This is my dream. I hear you talking about. He was like, let's not do flowers. Let's just do candles. And I'm like, we're doing the flowers. Actually, I'm surprised you married me. I would have been like, we need to pause on this real quick because I wasn't necessarily a bridezilla, but I just knew what I wanted, and I'm like, oh, thank you for your suggestions, but I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. I didn't say that, but that's kind of, I guess, probably what it looked like.
That was the energy that it felt like.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I know. Our wedding was great, though.
Yeah, our wedding's fantastic. And you can watch the video.
Yeah, shameless plug. We'll leave the link in the description box. It was great.
Bro, after the wedding, she told me how much the wedding cost, and I just could not believe it.
Yeah, it was OD.
I could not believe it. But it is what it is, and that's over. But just in terms of money and making sure that the habits of the person that you are with, that you're walking in the same direction that way. Yeah. And one thing I would strongly recommend is not having separate bank accounts when getting married. It kind of goes
after you get married.
After you get married. I mean, before you're married, please don't join your bank accounts with anybody.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but and not joining your assets.
Because, well, do what you want, but we suggest that you don't.
No, I was like, yeah, a recommendation is that because as a team, you're doing everything as a team. That's basically what I'm saying is that when you're saving for big goals, like you work on it as a team. When you're trying to pay for vacation, it's like as a team. And when you're together, you're able to form plans better. And it's not as tit for tat. It's like, well, she's falling behind on this and I'm falling behind on this. And it helps if someone's a saver and someone's a spender, because it's unfair to the saver to always be saving while the spender gets to spend all their money. So when it comes time to buy a car for the family, the saver has to use all their savings when the spender got to play time and party the whole time. So that's a strong recommendation from our side, that it's not like my money or your money. It's all our money.
I think it's important. I think it's just like, yeah, it'll cause a little bit of tension every now and then. Cause like for me, I'm a spender. I mean, like I'm also a saver, but I don't save as aggressively as my husband does. But I mean, it has come in handy the way he has saved for us. But sometimes I just want to go out and buy a Coach purse, and I feel like I can't do that. But at the end of the day, I feel like in the bigger picture, when it comes down to our bills and like the things we do around the house, it's not like, oh, well, I paid the last 2 mortgages and you were late on the light bills. Like, it's just less arguments, and it's more of a together thing. I would never look at Jonathan and be like, you're late on the whatever. I don't even know what the bills are. They're all automatic, so I can't remember. But you're late with the light bill and the lights shut off. Like, this is your fault, because it's our bills. We pay them together. So I think that helps a lot with a lot of, and it doesn't make anyone feel small or belittled or like put any pressure on anything. So for us personally, I think that is pretty important.
Yeah, and whether you decide to do a budget like us or decide to do it your own way, I think it's very important just before you get married, and even when you are married, just have the conversation about it. We're just trying to give you guys some points to just start talking about, just things to bring up, because a lot of this stuff people don't bring up until it's go time.
Until, you're in the argument. It's like, dang, we ain't never talked about this. I'm noticing we didn't talk about, we don't have this thing on there, but I'm going to bring it up because this is important. Okay. So I think it's also extremely important. As a Christian, sometimes it can be a little awkward to talk about this, but I think it's very important to talk about your sex expectations before you get married.
Great sex expectations.
The sex expectations are huge, because especially as a believer, I feel like some believers, they just don't believe in certain things. And like, I would never do, I'm not doing that. Like, that's not holy. I think everything's holy in the bedroom personally, but some people don't feel that way, and you don't want to figure that out after you get married. I'm not saying that you should try it. I'm just saying you should talk about certain things before we get married. You don't want to be like, it's your wedding night and like you start doing stuff and then you start pulling your head down and you're like, whoa, like I'm not doing that. So like, let me know, can I pull your head down there or not? no hand on the head though. We don't do that. But like, are we doing that? Are we not? Are you about that life? Are we not? Like, obviously not bringing other people into the bedroom, but like, we doing toys? Like, what are we doing? You know, is it just one position? How much fun are we gonna have up there? You know, like, what are we doing?
How much fun? I don't know if it's the right.
Okay, what are we doing? How low can you go? How is it freaky or not? What are we doing?
Well, yeah, I think as you are married, you discover more things about each other sexually. But I think to have the conversation about sex and expectations around it are super important because people have different sexual pasts. Not everybody had the benefit of not having sex before getting married. You know, some people have different sexual experiences. So because of that, you definitely want to talk about the expectations that you have around sex before walking into it.
Right. Yeah. And also maybe like how many times you guys can meet at to have sex just per week. I
How
mean,
many times you can meet at?
I mean, like, no, what am I trying to say? How many times you guys expect to have sex per week? Not like you're trying to put it on a calendar and like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but like, you want to know as a woman, like, if your partner expects to have sex every day, would probably be like, maybe can we try every other day? Like, and maybe like tentative. That's my new word. Tentative, because I've been making too many promises that I can't keep. So I'd be like, dang, tentative every other day. We tentative right now.
Super tentative. It's very tentative.
But I think it's important to talk about because, I mean, I remember we were watching this one show and the girl was like, yeah, we have sex 3 times a day, every day. I'm like, what? What are you guys doing? Like, do you go to work? Like, whatever. So if you want to know your partner's expectations, especially people who think like once you get married, we're having sex all the time. Like I can't guarantee you, but I can tell you that might not be how it
might not
out.
be.
It might not be.
But you definitely want to talk about it.
You want to talk about it. Also, I think it's important if you or your spouse watches porn that is spoken about because say you don't watch porn but your spouse does, like their views and vision of sex is very different and it may shock you once you get in the bedroom and things like that, you know? So I think just all the sex stuff, talk about it. And like Jonathan said, you're going to want to explore different things as you go on, but know your non-negotiables and say those out loud from now. And don't say something just because you want to make him or her happy. Like, oh, yeah, I don't mind doing that. And then when it's time to get down and dirty, you're like, oh, I can't do it. Or, you know, like, just take it easy, but just be honest with yourself and with your partner. Because it's not fair to them and it's not fair to you if you guys don't talk about this or if you're not honest about it.
100%. And disclaimer, we don't think it's good to watch porn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's it, really. Like, there's no explanation on that. Like, I just said if that's something your partner
No,
I'm telling them in case I just meant like if your partner is struggling with that, you guys talk about that. And if you are struggling with it and you haven't told your partner and you're about to get married, I think it's something very important to tell them.
You might want to talk about it.
You might want to let them know that for sure.
Just maybe.
Even talk about like masturbating. If you guys think it's wrong or inappropriate or whatever, like talk about everything under the sex umbrella. Very important to talk about. Maybe not too early, because like once you start talking about sex, it's like, dang, will you do the XYZ? I'm like, yeah, I'll do the XYZ. And like, dang, let me see. It can make your wheels start jumping.
This is a conversation for when you're approaching marriage relatively soon. Mm-hmm. You don't want to, I don't know. I mean, you can talk about things before, but you don't want to arouse passions in anybody before you're trying to indulge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jess, what's our last topic?
So we have one more. We had a few more, but I think the most important one that we have left is some type of like check out your mental health, both sides. I think it's very important to maybe get some type of counseling before you guys get married, whether it's couples counseling, engagement counseling, your own counseling, because a lot of things that you thought you buried underneath the rug or things that you're not struggling with anymore can come up later, and it's like, whoa, where did this angry side of you come from? Or all of a sudden you don't want to be touched because now it's coming up in your head that you got, assaulted or something, not to be too graphic or anything, but as a child, and all of a sudden you don't want to be touched by your husband. I think it's really important to uncover a lot of those things before you get married. Even if you're not about to get married, counseling or therapy, I'm just like a huge I'm fake because I went to one therapy session and never went back. But I think therapy is great. I think therapy is great. We did do counseling. We did pre-engagement counseling, which not everybody's for that, but I think it's not the worst idea. You don't even have to call it pre-engagement counseling because some people don't want to ruin the surprise, but some form of counseling to even see if you should be getting engaged. But I definitely 100% think before you get married, after you get engaged, premarital counseling 1000%, because the things that you are maybe afraid to uncover because you don't know how to navigate the conversation, your premarital counselor will talk about sex, we'll talk about finances, we'll pretty much talk about everything that we just brought up right now, and they'll be able to guide you through that conversation. So I think that's very, very, very important. But I also feel like if you've been through any trauma or any, like if you have daddy issues, mommy issues, anything that's very traumatic that has happened that you've brushed under and maybe your partner doesn't know, and even if they do know, if you haven't dealt with it, very important to deal with it before you get married.
Yeah, your mental health history and things that you've been through, your big traumas, like your capital T traumas, your a bunch of micro traumas that have built up, all of that stuff builds to how you interact with the world. You want to make sure you've examined all those things before you get into marriage, because all of that stuff will come out of you unless it's been addressed. It's like you can try the best to your ability to bury it down and cover it with this and try to push down all the negative thoughts that you have or have had, but it will come out later and affect your marriage unless you deal with it in advance. And especially if you know that your partner, whether they've had history with trauma or history with depression or anxiety, that it keeps coming up in different ways, but you haven't ever really addressed or haven't had them really address it, then that's something that you definitely want to consider, because those things tend to snowball rather than just resolve themselves. Yeah, trauma typically doesn't just resolve itself without, some resolution.
Yeah, I agree. Those are some of our top things that we think you guys should consider or talk about before you get married, maybe even before you get engaged. Again, well, I haven't said this on this episode, but we are not perfect, so we're not like sitting here as Mr. and Mrs. Queen of Marriage. Like we're 2 years in, there's still so much that we have to learn, but we can definitely speak to the things that we probably should have dug into a little bit more before we got married or engaged. But to be honest, I think we did a pretty good job. I'm not even gonna try to dumb it down like, oh, we didn't do, I think we did a pretty good job.
No, we did really good, but I think it's because we got advice like this. So in many ways, we're talking about all the things that we got from being married, but we're synthesizing a lot of good advice that we got from before being married as well.
Yeah. We had a lot of wise counsel throughout the whole thing.
100%. From parents, pastors, mentors, friends, we had a lot of good input, a lot of good advice. So I know many of you guys might not have had all the stuff that we had. I'm just thankful that we get to be a resource,
Yeah. You could say like, oh, they had it easy because they had this, this, and this. Like Jonathan's dad's a pastor. My dad's a pastor. I mean, it doesn't make it super easy, but we had much more resources to us or available for us. But you have to do the work regardless. Like
100%.
Whether it was easy for us or not. If we didn't have parents who were pastors, we still would have did the work to find them. So if this is something you want to last and for it to be fruitful, you have to do the work. Trees don't just grow on their own. You have to plant a seed and needs water, sunshine, all the good stuff. So in closing, you have something else you want to say?
My last piece of advice is don't settle. Don't think that just because I have a good person or a good thing right now, I can't let it go, especially when you have things that are red flags or even a bunch of yellow flags.
Yeah.
Don't feel like, I just have to do this because I don't know if I can find anyone else that will love me as much or that will be better for me. Like,
or we put in so much time.
We put in so much time.
That's my least favorite one. We've been dating for 6 years, though. It's like, girl, do you want to waste another 6? Get out of there.
Yeah, you should have an abundance mindset. That, like, the God that gave you that good gift has no shortage of good gifts.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the scriptures that I love is that God loves to give good gifts to his children. Right? So because of all of that, don't settle, on something that is less than what is optimal for you. And when I say that, I don't mean like hold out hope forever for a perfect, no one's going to be perfect.
Right.
But the things that would bother you going into marriage. Things that you shouldn't settle on, things that are non-negotiable. And just know that even if you let go of a good thing that you do have, it doesn't mean that God doesn't have better for you.
Yeah. High
That's
five.
all. That's it. Maybe we'll come up with another guide in a year from now. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
have some more things.
Yeah, but as of right now, that's it.
That's it. That's
All
all we
right.
got.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Peace.
Bye.